This is the Money Loves Women podcast, the podcast that guides women to wealth and an extraordinary life. Here's your host, Dr. Deborah Ekstrom.
This is Dr. Deborah Ekstrom for the Money Loves Women podcast. Today, I'd like to welcome Ann Garcia. And Ann is going to teach us how you can pay for college. And I know that's on lots of people's minds, whether you're a budding student or a past student or planning for college as a parent. It's something most of us have to deal with, if not college, some other type of training. Ann is with Independent Progressive Advisors, and she's helped thousands of families save millions of dollars on college. So, this is going to be great information, Ann. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
First thing I'd like to do is ask you to give us a little context around yourself. So where'd you grow up? How'd you grow up? Who was significant in influencing you? And how did you end up in this area of endeavor?
Yeah, I love talking about myself, so I'm ready to dig in. I grew up in California. My parents moved around a lot when I was growing up. I was in the Bay Area, mostly because of my dad's job. And at one point, he was a management consultant. He left big consulting and started his own firm, and that was in the mid 1970s. And he thought, well, I got to find something that I can do myself, that I can sort of own that category, and that's what my business will be. And there was this area of business that was starting up called technology. And so he decided he would become a consultant to technology firms, and was very successful about it. Worked with a lot of early stage companies that are now household names, Apple, Atari, companies like that. So to me, it was very influential being in that household growing up, because I got to see entrepreneurship from a lot of different perspectives. My dad as a business owner and how that impacted our family over time, and all the entrepreneurs that he worked with. And many were quite successful, and others really struggled. And even the successful ones had some struggles along the way. So I think that really colored how I saw careers and business ownership and entrepreneurship. And one of my takeaways from that was there's a lot of value in working for a company too, where you can learn things and have stuff like health insurance and whatnot. So I never really thought I was going to go down that entrepreneurial path. But something happened, which is that after high school, I decided I didn't want to go right to college, and I decided to be an exchange student. So I went to Germany for a year and made some friends and, spent a year there, learned the language and whatnot. After I graduated from college, I had an opportunity to go back there and work. And over the course of my year of working there, I realized that I didn't want to live there forever, but I did want to be able to travel there. And so I knew that I wanted to be in a career where I could travel a lot. And one thing I noticed was, while everyone in my home area was using computers, no one in Germany was. And so I thought, okay, I guess I will do this tech thing because there's probably something I can do there that will scratch the travel itch and let me keep coming back and stay in touch with friends and whatnot over there. So ultimately,
let me stop you for just a minute. What part of Germany did you live in?
I lived in Hamburg, up in the north.
In Hamburg. Mit Spitzen und Steinen. That's how they speak up there.
Yeah.
I lived in the south of Germany. Part of my time growing up, so it's very dear to my heart. Interesting. So they weren't using computers yet. Your dad had been an entrepreneur. He was a consultant, worked with lots of companies. What was your mom doing?
So she was a teacher, and mostly substitute teaching, because that was just a good balance between my dad. My dad traveled a lot for work, so she needed to be around for us. But at one point, after my dad started his business, we always think of health insurance as being a new problem, but it's kind of been an issue all along. So she decided that since my dad was self-employed and needed health insurance for the family, she ran for the school board. And
Ooh, okay.
so, so lots of creative ways to make your family, your family needs come together. She's also, a passionate, lifelong advocate for education, and she was a terrific school board member. But we always thought that she did it to torture my siblings, and I always thought she did it to torture us. But eventually, she said actually it was for the health insurance.
How many siblings do you have?
I have an older brother and a younger sister.
And you're in the middle.
I'm the middle.
You're the middle kid. Okay. So back to Germany. So at this point, when you go to Germany, are you working for yourself?
No, I worked for Axel Springer, which at the time was the largest publishing house on the continent.
Okay.
So definitely big company. And it was interesting over there too, because coming from Silicon Valley, I grew up in an environment where everyone wanted to be an entrepreneur, start their own company, retire by the time they're 35 and whatnot. And my German friends all wanted to work for big companies. And I was like, oh, sorry, I'm working for the man here. And they're like, that's awesome. How'd you get that job?
Great. So they liked corporate structure. It's also a sign of success and prestige in
Mhm.
Germany to work for a big corporation if you're associated with a big corporation. So
Definitely.
what exactly were you doing over in Germany?
So when I worked there, I worked as a translator.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And did you ever study German, or did you learn all of your German on the street?
so I learned it initially by being an exchange student. When I lived over there, the host family I stayed with, the parents were from East Germany, and so they had grown up speaking Russian and didn't speak any English at all. So I was truly thrown into the fire to learn it, which was difficult, but also ultimately really really wonderful. When I came back and went to college, I did end up doing a minor in German, and so it was really interesting, layering academic German on top of teenage spoken German.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing though. So you had lots of conversational German, and then you learned a lot of other kind,
Hmm.
more formal German, and probably more business German, perhaps, and then learned that on the
Some.
job. Yeah, learned that on the job probably too. I didn't learn that. I
Yeah.
learned conversational, and then I went to school, so I learned that
Yeah.
part. But I had a lot of German before I went to Germany, conversational. So anyway,
Yeah.
so it sounds to me like you got very proficient, and
Mhm.
then I'm still not clear exactly as to what you were doing over there, besides working for a big corporation.
Yeah, I just worked for I worked so I worked for Axel Springer, which was at the time the largest publishing house on the continent. Lots of magazines, newspapers, and
Okay.
whatnot. And I worked as a translator in the international ad sales
Oh,
department.
yes, yes. Sorry. You said you worked in translation, and it was in ad sales. Okay. So how long were you there?
I was there a total of 3 years, but
Okay.
1 year each, three different times.
Okay, got it. So what you had figured out from being an exchange student, that you didn't want to live full time in Germany, but you wanted to go back and forth because you enjoyed the culture and you liked the continent.
Yep, yep.
And I can totally get that. I can totally get that. So that's great. So, how did that influence your future life? Because now, instead of being from Silicon Valley, exposed to lots of entrepreneurs, your dad was an entrepreneur, he did very well and helped other people be successful. And then you go to Germany, which is a very different kind of culture. It's much less free flying, much more constrained, I think. And maybe that's not even a good word, but it's different than it is in the US, especially different than California.
Yeah.
So how did that influence you in your future from those two very juxtaposed sorts of cultures?
Well, I would say a couple of things. One is just having had the opportunity to work over there was really a differentiator on my resume when I was looking for jobs early in my career. And so that was amazing. It gave me such a huge leg up and really opened up opportunities for me that wouldn't have existed otherwise. But the other thing that I've carried with me since then too is coming out of there, I realized that I wanted to find jobs that met specific goals of my own. So rather than saying, I want to, be a computer programmer or I want to be a teacher, I said, I want to travel and I want to have a job that lets me travel. And I found a great job that did that. And I was always very happy in my job because it was doing the things for me that were important to me. And it really helped me navigate the ups and downs of, of life in the corporate world. And, as my life went forward, I eventually decided I didn't want to travel so much. And when I had kids, I really didn't want to travel. And that was a lot of what led me to my current career. I had left. So my first tech job, I was the international sales manager for a small software company. Did that for a few years. And then I went to a bigger software company called Intuit, which makes Quicken and TurboTax and various other, Mint.com now. And we always joked when you work at Intuit, every January 15th, all your friends call and ask for a free copy of TurboTax. And every April 15th, they call and ask what they should do with their tax refund. And I found I really enjoyed having those conversations and thinking strategically about money and what it can do for you and, and how you can do things other than just pay your bills, but think about your future and position yourself for long-term success by using your money well. And so after I had kids, I wanted a job with no travel, but lots of intellectual stimulation. And I realized that, I was still continuing to have those conversations with people and I enjoyed having them. And so I went and got my certified financial planner credential and have been a financial advisor ever since.
Fabulous. So you figured out what you wanted out of life and made your job match rather than the other way around, which I think is that's really, really enlightened. And I think it's a great point to bring up and a point to make to our listeners and the people who follow us. So that's really great. And now you're a financial planner. You decided that you're going to help people figure out how to take their financial life to the next level, how to plan their finances. And one of the things you, I'm sure, fell upon was how do you plan for educating your children? And you have children of your own?
I do. I have twins who just graduated from college this year.
Okay, so you've gone through this yourself.
Yes.
Okay, so you've gone through this yourself. Give us the rundown. Give us the summary, and then give us the points.
All right. So where to begin? I would say, just by way of background, the part of the reason I started looking into this topic was I'm a parent myself, and I knew I needed to know this for myself. But I also found I was talking a lot with two different groups of people. One were parents who were coming in, with no idea how to plan for this gigantic expense. And let's face it, college for a lot of families is their biggest expense, maybe other than retirement, or maybe even bigger than retirement. And then I was also talking with a lot of young adults who were struggling with the basic building blocks of their adult financial lives, whether it's buying a home or saving for retirement, sometimes even having emergency savings, all because they were just overwhelmed with student loan debt. And so I realized if I could figure things out for that first group, help that first group, those parents who are trying to figure this out, then maybe I'd see less of that second group. And frankly, maybe I could help myself along the way. And
never a bad thing.
So planning for college, I think the really important thing about planning for college is it's equal parts financial planning and parenting when you are a parent who has kids who you would like to send to college. Because you can do a great financial plan. You can save enough money. You can understand what you can pay for out of cash flow. You can know where the scholarships come from and how to get them. But if you're not talking with your kid about why you're doing this, how you're doing this, what your goals for them are, what your budget for them is, then you can throw everything you did out the window because they're going to fall in love with a college that may or may not be in the realm of the possible for you.
Totally get that. I want to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
A couple quick questions. Who should and who should not go to college?
So I don't know that there's necessarily a you should or you shouldn't. The thing with college is so often we as parents say, our family can't afford that, so you can't go. Here's the thing. College is available at literally every price point. So my son has a friend who got her degree for $0. She did, 2 years of free community college, and then she worked for Starbucks which has a tuition partnership program with Arizona State's online school. And so she finished her degree there and literally paid $0 for college and has a 4-year college degree. So I don't think it's necessarily about, do you have the money to go or not? Because there is a pathway at every price point. There are certainly loads of good career paths that don't require a college degree, but there are very few good career paths that you can just finish high school and step right onto the path.
Totally,
So I
totally
think
agree. Totally agree.
I think as a
Some
parent,
kind of
you
training.
need to plan that your child will have some education in
Yes.
addition
So
to
we
high
don't need to
school.
be thinking of college only. We can be thinking of any advanced training, whatever that may be. And the reason I ask you that question is because I think lots of people go to college who really don't know that they want to
Mm-hmm.
have the kind of degree that a college gives them, but that it's looked down in our society on people who are in non-college tracks. And I
Yep.
think that's really unfortunate because I think
Agreed.
lots and lots of people, there's huge opportunity for women and everyone actually in non-college tracks
Mm-hmm.
to learn other professions. And I just wanted to bring that up because everybody kind of organizes their life around, of course, my child's going to college. And then they get a law degree and making $60,000 a year and can't pay their student loans back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
or having a really struggle to do it. And I'm seeing a lot in medicine where people are coming out of college and are coming out of medical school with $250,000, $350,000 in debt. It's so disheartening, and they don't have a lot of choice about what kind of work they can do because they immediately have to make money.
Yep.
So they really kind of end up being in servitude to a corporation, a different kind of corporation maybe. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's go on to your next step. I liked how you outlined it though.
So I think no matter what your educational aspirations for your children are, the earlier you start to save for some future for them, the better off they're going to be, because what you're doing by saving is creating choices for them. And one of the great things about college savings is you can kind of think of a college savings account as a launch fund for your child, especially because there was a new one of the provisions of the Secure 2.0 Act that was passed last year was that you can roll over unused education funds in a 529 college savings plan to a Roth IRA. So you no longer, one of the biggest barriers that I find for parents when they want to get started thinking about college is they say, well, I don't know if my kid's going to go to college or not, so I don't want to save for college. Think of it as, I do want to launch my child. And a 529 college savings plan is a really great way to do that. So 529s are dedicated education savings accounts. They are run by the states, and most states offer some tax benefits for you to contribute to these accounts. Typically, it's a tax deduction. Sometimes it's a tax credit on your state income tax return for that. When you invest money in these accounts, it grows tax-free. And as long as you take it out for qualified education expenses, you don't pay any taxes on the growth. So let's say you put, $1,000 in when your child is born, and by the time they finish high school, it's maybe $3,000. Well, you have $2,000 tax-free dollars there as long as they use it for education. And that can be four-year college, it can be community college, it can be apprenticeship programs. In many states, you can use it for private K-12 schooling. And you can also, like I said, roll over $35,000 of it to a Roth IRA for your child. So starting saving early gives your kid a launch fund, whichever pathway they ultimately choose. Now, I'm a huge fan of 529s for savings. I like the tax-free growth, the tax-free distribution. I like the state tax benefits. They're also just really, really easy to use, and they have low minimum contributions. But one of my favorite aspects of them is all of them have what's called a gifting page. And with a gifting page, if you've ever been the parent who said, please stop giving my kid toys, you can share the gifting page to your 529 and say, what I would like is for you to contribute to their education instead. And people can contribute directly to your child's college savings, AKA your launch fund.
Very well set up.
Yeah.
Very well set up. Yeah.
The other thing I will say is that kids who have college savings, even in very small amounts like $500, not only enroll in college at higher rates, but they also graduate at higher rates than those without. Now, obviously, you could say if you're saving for college, you're probably encouraging your kid to go there. But the fact that they also graduate at higher rates really, I think, speaks volumes about the benefits of doing some savings.
Do you think that's because they have savings, or do you think that's because the family has made it some kind of priority and there's an expectation?
I would say definitely the latter is a big piece of that, because it can be difficult to, get through the application process, the transition from home to college, the cost of college if you don't have a level of family support in doing that. So certainly there's chicken and egg in all of that, and we could probably debate for hours over which is which, but yeah, I would say definitely, having your parents in your corner is a huge asset.
So I want to ask you a couple questions. The 529, does that have limitations on where it can be used? Does it have to be a state school? Can it be a private school?
That's a great question. So you can use any 529 account at any school where you could take out a federal student loan. So the fact that I live in Oregon and use the Oregon College Savings Plan, my daughter went to school in Illinois, my son went to school in Arizona, and we used their 529s at both of those schools. So no, and that is one of the bigger barriers that people have in starting these plans up is like, I don't know where my kid's going to go to school, so I don't know if I should save in this plan. It doesn't matter. Any plan can be used. All college savings plans can be used at all the same places.
That's great. Have you run across this, and maybe this is fairly recent, where kids go to community college and then the next place they want to go will not accept their credits?
Mm-hmm. It is unfortunately a big problem, where community college credits don't necessarily transfer over. Community college can be a great pathway to a 4-year degree. But it's not an automatic one. Like I remember when I went to college, it was really easy for people to transfer community college to 4-year college and be done in 4 years. Now, if you're not really diligent about being in contact with the 4-year colleges that you're interested in and making sure that you're taking the right classes and getting the right credits, it's entirely possible that you go to the community college for 2 years and then transfer over, and maybe you got 1 year of credit, maybe even less. There's some really good programs that help with that. Most states have a form of what's called dual enrollment. And dual enrollment can work one of two ways, and most states offer both. One is where, as a high school student, you are dually enrolled in your high school and a community college, and your community college classes count towards your high school diploma, and you're also earning credit towards college. What's nice about those is they tend to have lots of guidance counselors involved in them. You have your high school guidance counselor who can help you with course selection, and then you have someone at the community college who's helping you with course selection. And because you're taking the classes that will get you your high school diploma, you're taking the right subjects to transfer on to college. You can also do that as a college student, be dually enrolled in a community college and a 4-year college. Typically, that's a state 4-year college. And oftentimes you can do that, you can go away to college and do that. Where with a lot of dual enrollment programs, you could live in the dorms at the 4-year school and participate fully in the 4-year college life. But your first 2 years, you're taking your classes at the community college, and many states allow you to use free community college for that as well. But again, because you're in that program that's a specific funnel from community college to 4-year college, you have someone kind of looking over your shoulder and making sure that you're choosing the right courses so that you will get that credit.
That sounds really critical, because what you don't want to do is go 2 years to community college and then 4 years to another university and pay for 6 years of college.
Exactly.
Instead of having that.
Yeah, and community colleges are a great resource, but you need to make sure that you're managing that
on
resource.
Track. Yeah, so you're on track. The other question I want to ask you is from your experience, totally from your experience, because my husband and I required that our children put a certain amount per year toward their college that they either earned. One was a resident assistant when he was in college, and that was where it came from. The other one worked summers and worked vacations, and that's where he got his money. And the reason we did that, and I don't know how prevalent it is that parents do that, but we wanted them to be fully invested and engaged in the success of their college career. What do you see in your advising as far as not only the financial ends of college, but obviously having the money saved is one part, but having a successful result is the other part. What are you seeing in terms of kids contributing?
So I think, the cost of college is as high as it is. It needs to be something that is at least as important to the kid as to the parents. And different families have different ways of addressing that. And in my book, How to Pay for College, I have lots of examples of different ways you might choose to approach that. As a family, it's perfectly reasonable to say, this is our college budget, and we'll pay this much, and you're responsible for anything above that, as long as you're being reasonable.
Yes.
Because one of the challenges for kids is their ability to get financial aid is a function of their parents' ability to pay. And so if you are a wealthy household that tells your kids that you're not going to support them through college, you are really limiting their college choices.
Mm-hmm.
And more than limiting their college choices, you're constraining their future, because they're going to take on so much student loan debt that it's going to, like you were saying, it's going to dictate what jobs they can take, where they can live, all kinds of things like that. But
Yeah.
totally reasonable and normal to expect kids to have skin in the game. I think important things are making sure, again, that you're being reasonable with your expectations for them. So students can borrow through the federal student loan programs a total of $27,000 over 4 years of college. So if you expect them to be on the hook for more than that, you need to be working with them to figure out how they're going to come up with it. Now, good news is wages are really, really high right now. It's not difficult for students to earn several $1,000s a year through a part-time job, a summer job, summer internships while they're students. As you mentioned, being an RA is a great way to contribute a lot towards your college. Maybe as parents, you carve out specific expenses that your kids are responsible for. Maybe they're responsible for their books. Maybe they're responsible for their food or their housing or whatever, whatever those items are. Just be reasonable and be clear with them about what your expectations are. Maybe you want them to pay 10% of the cost of college. Any of these are fine as long as they're reasonable.
we made our kids responsible for anywhere they wanted to go on spring break. We were not going to pay for spring break.
Yeah.
You want to go to spring break? You want to go somewhere? That's great. You pay your own way. You work to pay your own way. And I don't think that's unreasonable to do that. And we could afford to send them. We could afford to send them fully to school. We could, but and to private high schools before that. But what we didn't want them to think they were entitled and that they could go to school and party.
Yeah.
So that's not what they did, and they did work hard to pay their little piece.
Yeah.
So I was really proud of them for that. Very proud. Tell us about your book.
So my book is How to Pay for College. It's set up to be a soup to nuts, build your own financial plan for college. And again, addressing, as I said before, the two important pieces of it, the financial planning piece and also the parenting piece. So,
Excellent.
how do you save? How do you pay for college? How do student loans work? How do the education tax credits work? How do you build up a spending plan, research colleges? How do you take money out to pay? And equally importantly, how are you talking, parents talking among themselves? How are you talking with your kids so that you're managing their expectations and everyone's on the same page about what are a reasonable range of choices?
That's a great contribution, Anne. That's a
Thank
great contribution. Thank you. Everybody needs to read that who's sending kids off to college, no matter what their financial circumstances are. Um, that's a great contribution. Anything else we should know that people are just missing about paying for college?
Well, I think one of the biggest areas where people don't understand how the system works, so to speak, is how scholarships and financial aid work. I hear from so many families, oh, we make a good income, so we're not going to get any scholarships. We're stuck paying full price. Good news, every college offers scholarships. Every student is eligible for scholarships. Now, the bad news is that not every student is going to be offered scholarships at every college. So as a parent, as a student who's looking at colleges, you really need to be figuring out where are the schools that are going to offer me scholarships and how do I apply to those. Scholarships come in three big flavors. There are scholarships that are awarded on the basis of need, and that's just you file the FAFSA or the CSS profile, which are the two financial aid forms. And if your calculated ability to pay for college is less than the cost of attendance at a school, you could be eligible for financial aid there. Does not obligate the college to offer you financial aid, though. So it's important, if that is you, that you look for colleges that offer scholarships to meet your financial need. Another big group of scholarships is merit scholarships. And we often think of football and basketball players, but actually it's the mathletes who clean up in the merit scholarship category. The vast majority of scholarships go to students with good grades and oftentimes good test scores. And I know people say, well, my kid's not a 4.0 student. Well, guess what? It's good relative to the population at the college. My son didn't even have a 3.5 GPA, and he got a significant merit scholarship at the college that he chose. But merit scholarships can come from lots of other things too, really, because they're really just money that colleges are giving out to discount tuition to bring in the students they want to enroll. Maybe it's a small school that values being able to say we have students from all 50 states. Well, if you're from a small state that's 500 miles away, you might be their only applicant from there, and they're probably going to be interested in getting you. I'm not sure if I should say this out loud, but my son had a scholarship for playing video games.
I love it.
So esports are a big thing at a lot of colleges right now.
Yes,
If your kid's
yes.
a gamer, look for colleges that have esports scholarships. So lots and lots of ways to, lots and lots of sources for scholarships. So those two types of scholarships, those merit scholarships and the need-based scholarships, those are what's called institutional scholarships. They come from the schools themselves, and you apply for them largely by applying to the college and submitting your financial aid forms, which are, again, the FAFSA and the CSS profile. There's another big group of scholarships called outside scholarships, and those are offered by entities other than the college. They might be your local Rotary. They could be your employer, civic groups that you participate in, activities your kids participate in. Best place to find those is your high school's college and career center, because they will have a whole bunch of local scholarships that might have much smaller pools of applicants than the big online databases of scholarships.
Our local bank offers scholarships, and I personally got a scholarship from the Seroptimus Club, which is a women's club. So they're out there. You just have to go looking for them.
Yeah. My daughter got a terrific scholarship that was for women pursuing STEM careers. And she got $5,000 a year for 4 years, plus an annual grant for technology. And then in addition to that, she got a professional mentor who helped her find an internship that led to a full-time job when she graduated. So that was a great scholarship to get. I will say the dollars for those outside scholarships tend to be less than the institutional scholarships. So when you're looking for colleges, look for ones that offer institutional scholarships to a student like yours. Those outside scholarships are what might make the difference between taking out a student loan and not taking out a student loan, or going to your top choice college versus going to your second choice college. They're not the thing that's going to be the difference between our budget is $12,000 a year and this college is $80,000 a year.
It's easy to see how people get overwhelmed with trying to figure this out. Yeah. So, Ann, is it very common that financial advisors work in this area, or is it uncommon?
More and more are starting to. What's unfortunate is it seems like a lot of the insurance salespeople who call themselves financial advisors got into this space first. And so I've seen so many times where people have been given the advice that they should cash out their 529 and buy an annuity because it'll be better for financial aid. Annuities for college are really good for people who sell annuities. They are not good for parents who want to educate their children. So there are more and more financial advisors getting involved in this topic. But I think one of the challenges for us as advisors is, unlike retirement, where there's a pretty specific set of variables and tools that we're all broadly familiar with, the college landscape is fairly opaque. And there's a lot of misunderstandings about it. I would say if you are considering using a financial advisor for college planning, ask them their opinions about 529s. Oftentimes advisors will tell you not to use a 529 because they want to manage your money. And that is almost never an instance of an advisor acting in your best interest. If they tell you anything other than a 529 plan is the best way to save for college, they're probably not a good advisor for the topic of college.
That's really good insight. And do you advise just locally where you are, or are you virtual like so many other people are now? And do you advise people from all over the country?
I do. I work with families all over the country. I personally believe that college is a big enough expense that you shouldn't be paying a lot of other people to help you, paying a lot of people a lot of money to help you. And so I created my book, which is really a step-by-step build your own financial plan for college. And then I also have an online course that I use, for families who are in high school and just really, in those last stages of planning and need to pull the whole thing together. So I have an online course for that. I used to do all this individually with people, and I found I was answering the same questions again and again and again, and I could be of better service if I had a tool to allow them to do that themselves. And then I have a website, howtopayforcollege.com, which has got loads and loads of information about the college planning process.
Well, thanks for that. That's really great information. I want to ask you one last question. If women, not college now necessarily, but women from your experience and your own life want to become more successful right here and now, what could they do right away from your point of view?
I think so. I'm going to approach this from the question of finance, since that's where I am. I think the most important thing to do is know where your money goes, because anything you want to do, career-wise, retirement-wise, family-wise, that has a dollar component to it, you need to understand, do I have a surplus that I can direct towards that? If I don't have a surplus, where's all my money going so I could maybe figure out what I could dial back and get to a surplus? And then, what do I have already? How much have I saved so far? What accounts am I saving in? So know where you are and where your money's going, and use that to look forward.
Excellent counsel. So if people want to get a hold of you, can you review for us one more time also the name of your book?
Yeah, it's all How to Pay for College. So my book is How to Pay for College. It's available from Amazon, from bookshop.org, from bookstores everywhere. And then my website is howtopayforcollege.com. And that's where my online course is. And like I said, there's loads and loads of free information. For families who are just starting the college selection process, there's also a free worksheet that you can download to track to track and research colleges.
All excellent tools. Thank you so much, Ann. So go ahead and reach out to Ann if you need help. You can tell how knowledgeable she is, and she's been through it herself, so she's walking the walk and talking the talk. Thanks for coming on, Ann. It's been really fun hearing what you have to say. I learned lots of things today, and I appreciate what you've been able to offer and teach us on Money Loves Women.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is Dr. Deborah Ekstrom for the Money Loves Women podcast. To your health, to your wealth, and to your happiness, may blessings rain down upon you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Money Loves Women podcast. Please leave us a rating and review so we know how we can improve. Visit moneyloveswomen.com to gain more insight into how to live an extraordinary life.